everyone, MissChief here, and welcome back to another true crime. So today we will be looking into the case of the Coventry Spree Killer, Anthony Russell, born 16th of April 1982. Went on a killing spree from the 21st of October 2020 to the 30th of October 2020. Now, before we get into that, thank you so much for the views and the likes so far. Now, if you like this video, then please go take a look at the other video that I have done. The very first one that I have done, really. So, thank you so much. And now, let's get on with the case. It all started on Riley Square, Coventry, England. A man by the name of David Williams went missing. This was around the 20th of October 2020. The mother of David, Julie Williams, called into West Midlands Police to report him missing in the early hours of the 24th of October. This is when Anthony's 9-day spree began. Now, David knew Anthony just as someone who lived on the same street as him. His mother Julie, who lived just round the corner on Rosebery Avenue, also knew of Anthony as someone who lived around the area. After David had been missing for a couple of days, his mother Julie had naturally started asking around if anyone had seen her son. This is when she had let people know that she would have to make a missing persons report for David, which you would do, naturally. Julie started off by getting locals to do a search around the area to look for her missing son. Unbeknownst to Julie, her son's killer had joined in the search to find David, who acted very concerned about his whereabouts. Not just Julie had felt that Anthony's behaviour was a little off. Speculation had started that he knew more about where David was than he was letting on. Julie became more concerned at this point and filed a missing persons report with the police on the 24th of October. On the 25th of October, Anthony caught wind of the report and that he was now suspected of being involved with David's disappearance. Only Anthony truly knew the truth of what happened to David and where his body was. Anthony went on to speak to someone he knew and clearly trusted, that he knew what had happened to David and the fact that he didn't want Julie to go to the police, so she would have to meet the same fate as her son. Anthony had brutally beaten David and strangled him with a ligature after a dispute that they had had. David's cause of death was noted as strangulation, neck compression. Coroners found David's body to have 81 injuries. This included 6 blunt force wounds. But where was his body during the early stages of this case? Anthony would do what he said he would. He made his way to Julie's home to deal with his little problem. Once he had made it into her home, he confronted Julie and attacked her. During this brutal attack, Julie sustained 113 injuries to her body. This included 7 blunt force injuries. Anthony left her for dead on the floor of her home, where she should have been safest. He then fled the scene of the crime, which he continued his day as if nothing had even happened at all. Even committed robbery later that same day. On this day, the police had started to investigate Julie's missing persons report of her son, David. The police investigated around the area, speaking to many of the locals, who announced that it could have been Anthony as he had been behaving strangely during the search for David. They had also been told that Anthony had confessed to the murder of David and that his mother, Julie, was next, which sent the police into high alert. They were now concerned for Julie's safety, to which they sent officers out to her home, but no one answered when they got there. Which we all know, as I had just said, Anthony had already got to her. They saw evidence of damage on the doorway, so they forced their way into her property at around 11 p.m. This was when they discovered Julie's body, brutally beaten, which made them put in a call to look for anyone acting suspiciously. The very next day, the local media reported that there was a killer in the area. Anthony was still in the local area when it was announced on the news that the police had discovered Julie's body and were now looking for the culprit responsible for her death. Once again, Anthony acted concerned and joined in with everyone trying to figure out who was responsible. Hiding in plain sight was his plan, clearly. Anthony was in panic mode at this point after learning that the police and other people were suspecting him. So, he decided to flee Coventry. Earlier, I mentioned that Anthony had committed a robbery. He robbed a 78-year-old man and assaulted him for some cash and a mobile phone, which he was planning to use to leave Coventry. 26th of October, Anthony was seen boarding public transport leaving Coventry. He arrived at Kenilworth, Warwickshire, where he would again commit robbery. He attacked yet another elderly person, a 70-year-old female, stealing £200 and assaulting her by dragging her across the floor. Yeah, he dragged a 71-year-old woman across the floor. By now, the investigation was fully underway. Julie's cause of death was violent and sustained attack. Anthony was now their prime suspect. Early hours of 26th of October, police were dispatched to Anthony's home, but of course, he was not there. When they had gained entry to his home, they discovered David's body hidden under his bed. This was when they knew they were looking for an extremely dangerous and callous offender, and a high alert call was placed for his immediate arrest. Anthony was now leaving Kenilworth at this point, on public transport may I add, to Leamington Spa. By the morning of 27th of October, he had been there for almost 24 hours, but the authorities were completely aware that he had been travelling via public transport. They were also aware of the direction Anthony was heading in and wanted to put as much pressure as possible to find him before he had time to commit any more crimes. This was when they put out a call to all Midlands police departments, causing a nationwide manhunt for him. Now, Anthony was aware that he was a wanted man. He had met a young, pregnant woman called Nicole McGregor by way of the people he had been staying with while in Leamington Spa, where he asked her to go with him to pick up some illicit substances from a dealer. They made their way to a local park called Newbold Common, to a secluded area where Anthony had told Nicole he was due to meet the dealer. It was now dark out. They were isolated and alone. Anthony brutally attacked, raped, and murdered Nicole. It was later determined that Nicole was pregnant at the time she was murdered. Her cause of death was recorded as strangulation, neck compression, the same as David. Nicole was strangled with a ligature and her body was abandoned by Anthony. Anthony was seen again on the 28th of October, leaving Leamington Spa on foot at around 2 p.m. Between murdering Nicole and leaving Leamington Spa, he had committed yet another robbery. A 75-year-old man who he asked for directions from. Anthony had followed the pensioner home and forced his way into the man's house, attacked him, stole some money and his car, which he used to drive himself to Staffordshire. 29th of October, Nicole's body had been found in a dense thicket near the River Leam. Her body was covered in scratches, indicating that Anthony had dragged her to hide her body. Early hours of 30th of October, 7 days since Anthony had become a wanted criminal, police were doing routine checks on suspicious vehicles. They located a car with a man sleeping inside. Police ran some checks on the car and it flagged as stolen. It also had links to wanted criminal and murderer Anthony Russell. The police immediately apprehended Anthony, which I will show you now because I have the footage of the arrest.
There's the car. Strike. Oh, please! Get your Got his hands!
Get him!
Yeah. Anthony Russell, you're under arrest for the murder of 3 people. You do not have to say anything but my army defence. You do not meant to question something which you later rely on court as. You do say maybe given evidence.
This was an appalling series of violent attacks. Don't lose sight of at the heart of this there are 3 people who lost their lives and another 3 people who were subject to violent robberies and again left for dead. Each of those in their own way were vulnerable people, either due to mental health, due to illness or due to age. So the chain of events we know now, it was the murder of David Williams. David was an associate, a friend of Russell. We don't know exactly why he killed him, but we think there was some kind of disagreement. David's mum, Julie, was obviously concerned for David. She hadn't seen him. She went to Russell and asked him if she'd seen David. Knowing that he was dead, he was actually dead in his flat. He said he hadn't seen him and actually helped Julie look for him. You know, again, another callous way. But then we know that he then killed Julie in an attempt to cover her tracks, and again a violent attack, leaving her dead in her house. From there we know that he knew there was a murder inquiry and fled from Coventry, went over to Leamington, and there tragically he befriended another person, a vulnerable female. She was pregnant, Nicole McGregor. He befriended her and killed her, left her body in a parkland. But again, another callous way, he spoke to her boyfriend who was looking for her and helped him look for her. So again, another callous way of covering his tracks, but used extreme violence. Russell was extremely dangerous, and obviously we need to arrest him as quickly as possible. This was a significant manhunt, indeed one of the biggest manhunts that West Midlands Police has run, and we work with colleagues from other forces around here, including Warwickshire and Staffordshire, who subsequently arrested him in their car. CCTV, both recovery of the CCTV and the painstaking watching of that CCTV was crucial to this case. Over 9,000 hours of CCTV was gathered. It took us over 6 months to piece that together, just to show exactly what Russell had been doing over those 7 days of violence. And that CCTV evidence, along with forensic evidence, witness evidence, that weight of evidence has led to these guilty pleas from Russell. Russell, extremely dangerous man, used extreme violence in all of the offences, showed no remorse. Indeed, when he was questioned by the police, he wouldn't be interviewed. He sat with a blanket over his head and wouldn't engage with the officers interviewing him.
Anthony Russell pled guilty to the murders of David Williams, his mother, Julie Williams, and Nicole McGregor during his trial in March 2020. He was also found guilty of the assaults and robberies he had committed along the way. He, however, didn't plead guilty to the rape of Nicole McGregor, which in turn caused a hung jury in February 2022 after 6 hours of deliberation. He was finally proven guilty in March 2022 after a retrial. He was given 3 whole life orders, equivalent to 3 life sentences by Warwick Crown Court, and will never be allowed to leave prison. Here is a picture and a screenshot of Nicole with her twin brother and what he wrote after all this happened. This was the UK's largest manhunt to date. I'm just glad that someone like him is now behind bars until he dies, so he can no longer hurt anyone else again. Now, this was rather savage to read up upon, you know, considering it was done just a few years ago, which seems crazy to me, but then when you think about criminals and what goes on through their minds, you have zero clue what is going through their minds and how they think. Anthony was also a drug addict, so we can see why a lot of the time he did the robberies, you know, this, that, and the other to get away from it all, but no one actually knows the reason as to why he killed David, his first victim, just over an argument. It was a simple argument. You know, most of us do not kill somebody over a simple little argument. But he did. So, that was the Coventry Spree Killer. Apparently, I can't talk today in a couple of spots in this video, but hey ho, we all have those moments, don't we? What can you do, huh? So I hope you enjoyed this video. I am going to leave you with the pictures of his victims because I think it's important that we think more about the victims of this crime rather than the disgraceful person who committed these crimes. But I hope you enjoyed this. Please like the video. Please subscribe. That would be absolutely amazing of you. And I really do hope to see you in the next one. I'm sorry this one took a little while to record and upload. We've had a lot of things going on this past week, like getting our kitchen redone, family, you know. But I do hope you have enjoyed it. If you want me to do a certain case, then please leave it in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.